Personally, I am not very fond of influencer marketing because influencers they don't give authentic content at times. It is always about the brands they sign up. Maybe you are the face of that podcast, but the podcast is not about a podcaster, it is about a guest. Don't run behind only followers and what is the trend. Trend will always give you temporary publicity or temporary growth. But when
Right.
you are producing something really good, something valuable, people would appreciate it.
You know, which was the first podcast which was done in history? It was the Bhagavad Gita, which was recited by Lord Krishna to one.
Imagine.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of Business Networking with Vipul Bondal on Thinkly Talks. I have my favorite podcaster here with me as a guest today. So please allow me to introduce Tushar Mestry. Tushar Mestry is a digital marketing specialist and founder of Digital Lofty Services LLP, and also the founder of the podcast called Swank Way. It's a voice that's shaping conversations behind the scenes and on the mic. With over 12 years in the game, Tushar has helped brands go from unnoticed to unstoppable, combining creative instincts with sharp execution. He is a BMM graduate in advertising from Patkar College, and he has not just built an agency, but a reputation for cutting through clutter and delivering digital strategies that actually work. And when he is not busy scaling brands, you'll find him on his own podcast called Swank Way, where he dives into the real stories, bold ideas, and breakthrough moments that move the industry forward. Today, he joins me for a conversation on podcasting, of having a dynamic mic, and a whole lot of value for anyone who wants to win in the digital age. Welcome to the podcast, Tushar, and it's a pleasure to have you here.
Same here. Thank you so much. Yeah, I am. I think this is the one of the times when I am online as a guest. So
Right.
yeah, it feels different.
So it's roles have reversed for a change. So
Yes.
you're answering questions, then actually posing those questions. But don't worry, we'll make sure that you don't feel uncomfortable about it. So this is one question which I always wanted to ask somebody, right? And and who better than you to ask this question? So, can you tell me what is a podcast? I mean, whenever somebody asks me what is a podcast, I find it damn difficult to explain what it means. Because it means different things. It's like an elephant, Some people touch the tail and think it's a rope. Some people touch the trunk and think it's a pipe. So, what exactly is a podcast? And how is it different from any other media product that people experience and experience?
Okay. So people often get confused. The podcast is just like just another video, like two people are talking or
Correct.
record and just shoot it. But I'll tell you one thing. So, podcast, the aim of podcasting or the podcasters create content because they want to give some kind of quality or some kind of message throughout the episode or throughout that, one podcast, what they produce. And it is unlike TV channel. Like let's say you have your favorite TV show, but then if you want to watch, you have to run and go and watch at the same time. But podcast gives you that liberty that you can watch that whenever you want.
Right.
So another advantage is podcast. Normally, even I watch podcast. You watch podcast. Is we are spending that much of amount of time of our daily schedule to learn something new, right? But what if it is forced? Like you have to watch it at 8 p.m. or you have to watch it at 6 p.m. It is not possible, not feasible.
Yeah.
But what if you have a liberty? Okay, you can watch that type of content in a specific mood when in your whenever you are comfortable with, so that gives you liberty to absorb that content much more and much better way. So that is the reason the podcasting is started.
Okay. Then what prompted you to become a broadcaster? I mean, you run a very successful digital marketing agency. And, while it sounds very natural that you moved to podcasting, what prompted you to do that?
Yeah. So Post COVID, I realized one thing. By that time, influencer marketing was booming,
Right.
and personally, I am not very fond of influencer marketing
Yeah.
because like influencers, they don't give authentic content at times. It is always about the brands they sign with. So as a digital marketing expert, I saw the future, like the podcast as a medium will not be limited only to narrate someone's story or life journey or something. Eventually, it will move towards using that as a marketing platform
Right.
digitally, right? And
Right.
now, after 3 or 4 years, you can see that like now, podcast is not only limited to sharing life stories. People are producing different type of content. Businesses are coming on podcast, so that is the main agenda. So as a digital marketing agency, how we can also help people to build their podcasting journey.
Right. Okay, so got that. Now my point here is, you call yourself a podcast specialist. I mean, you're not just a podcaster yourself; you're a podcast specialist. So, what do you do? What's your role as a podcast specialist? What are the specific products or services that you have that you offer as a podcast specialist?
Okay, so when we call it a podcast specialist, so one thing is end-to-end podcast solutions. Like if someone wants to outsource their podcasting services to us, then we can. If
Okay.
someone wants us to, give them a direction in what process, in what sense that we want to help them, we can do that. We have content writers who can help building the structure that in a way people can help growing themselves. That is one thing. Second thing is I'll tell you, I'm a BMM graduate student, right? I have
Right.
specialized in advertising. So I've done a lot of short films at that time. So it was like always, helpful for me to, help people guiding as like a kind of a direction, giving them direction, like aesthetically how things will look better. Then I've also done acting for camera, which helped me understand how you can interact with camera, and it helps me to help my guest or someone who wants to start podcast how you can be comfortable in front of the camera. So that is one
Right.
aspect that I can help you out with. So yes,
Okay.
so end to end, so anything like shooting, editing, producing, promoting as a digital marketing agency, we can do that.
Right, right. So any aspect, so right from the fact that somebody wants to start their own podcast, right up to creating that podcast, creating the content around it, then even marketing that particular
Right.
podcast is what you get into, right? I mean, other than, of course, getting them to appear on your own podcast
Yeah.
and doing that. Okay, fine, understood. Now, can you tell me a little bit about the wonderful name that you have for your podcast? I mean, it's a very swanky name, and
Yeah.
you've called it In a Swank Way. I mean, can you tell me the background to that name that you've given your podcast?
Yeah, so if you look at our color palette right now, also you can see the background. It's something
Right.
that I always felt like digital marketing is one of the edgy thing, like which will never go out of trend, right? But yet, I'm a person who believer like go to your grounds or go to your roots. So it is always being the retro futuristic approach. You still adapt those roots and then go ahead. That is one of the
Right.
reasons I came up with this word called swank. Swank means something which is powerful, confident, delivers something which is very clear and thoughtful. And then, like, a podcast was like, okay, then in a swank way, like, we are actually producing content very like positively and reaching out to people. That is why we chose that.
Interesting. Okay, so what? Yeah, I'm sure the journey may not have been very smooth, although it looks and sounds very nice. I'm
Yeah.
sure there were lots of challenges that you faced as a podcaster. So, can you tell us about some of your challenges that you had? Maybe to begin with, someone thought maybe you're too young, or maybe someone thought you're too old. What are some of those challenges that you face? I don't want to preempt any of those, but if you can tell us.
See, for one challenge, like I'll start from mishaps, then I'll come up to like bigger
All right.
challenges, right?
Okay, great.
Mishaps is something like sometimes you forget forget recording the episode only, and
Oh my God.
in
Okay.
20 minutes, okay, you have to re-record. I mean, when you
Oh,
start podcasting, you are not that fond of every single technical
right.
aspect of it. Sometimes you might forget your charger somewhere, some lights is not working on the last moment, guest cancels at the last moment, he feels sick or something due to something. These are some mishaps which is uncontrollable. But I think as a podcaster who wants to start or who has just started, I'll tell you the common issue that they face is being judged by a lot of guests and people, and about their credibility. So if someone wants to, if you approach someone for a podcast, they will first ask how many followers or how many subscribers you have, right?
Right.
Uh, but it's a journey, right? It can't be like overnight. Okay, if I want to ask, or if someone wants to approach someone as a guest, that person
Right.
actually values you, sees value that as a guest you can contribute that. So podcasting is not a one person journey; it's a contribution of two people. So when you give that content to my channel, of course my
Right.
channel will grow. So more than be judging or like just looking at how much engagement and followers we have, of course that one criteria is there, but you can judge based on the quality of content that person is producing rather than the reach of that channel is something that I would say. And that is the biggest challenge all the news podcasters are facing.
And any other challenges that you faced apart from this? I mean, of course, numbers is always the challenge. I mean, wherever you go, whichever field you go, whatever number you throw, nobody is ever satisfied with
Challenge
those
is
numbers.
being consistent is it's the most prominent thing that affecting a lot of people because initially I'm definitely I'm definitely with it saying okay, not 100% of podcasters are going to do all this full time.
Mhm.
There will be some of the other commitments that they have. The way I am doing, like I have my digital marketing agency, but in that also I make some time of mine to you know uh,
Right.
produce some podcasts, right? So that
Correct.
is one challenge where like you have to stick to time and not being consistent will definitely hit you very badly because I will tell you my journey in between for 2 or 3 months some or because of some personal commitment I couldn't produce broadcast, so it hit me.
Correct.
My entire analytics went down
Down.
because people expect your podcast every week. That is one
Correct.
thing, being consistent.
Correct.
Yeah.
There's a question on the community. So it's in line with what we just discussed. So I just thought it's appropriate to take it now. So the question comes from Kabir Bedi. Kabir
Mhm.
is a regular, on our community, always has some very nice questions. Thank you, Kabir, for this. So his question is, how do you approach and get good guests? Do you have a team? If I had to start today, he says, what's the best way to approach people?
Okay. Thanks, Kabir, first of all, for asking this question. So, I will tell you my experience. So, I started with my own network first. So, whatever people I had, so what I planned in initial 3 months, I never posted any episode. I shot almost 12 to 15 episodes prior with the
Right.
like the credible people whom I can trust or I can just approach them. So that is one thing where you can generate at least initial 10 to 15 episodes. Once
Right.
you launch them, it becomes very easy for you to approach others because for anyone to refer you already have some kind of database so they can look at
Right.
your content, so that becomes your first breakthrough that it becomes easy for you to approach other new people. So yeah, there you can start from there.
So you begin with people close to you, shoot a few episodes,
I
and
identified
then actually launch it, is what you
Yeah, so
mean?
I identified 50 people whom I can directly trust and approach them. Out of 50, let's say 10 people were available at that point. So
Right.
in initial 1 month, we shot 12 to 15 episodes.
So you already have a bank of episodes to begin with, and then you
Yes. So
subsequently.
once you have at least 10 episodes, so if I want to approach someone new on Instagram or maybe LinkedIn or something, I can show them that I have already shot these many episodes.
Kabir, I hope that has answered your question. And so if you have any more questions, please post them. Tushar is here to answer all of them. So I'm sure in your podcasting journey, you probably had some very memorable podcasts. One or two which you know even now when you think of them, you feel very happy or you feel extremely scared. Ki ye hua. So can you tell us about your a couple of memorable, one or two memorable podcasts that you had?
So of course, like. Memorable, the first one will always be memorable. I have shot
Sure.
with my very close friend Prabhupada Samal on I Love Spirituality with a different twist. He was not a Baba, he was not someone who was a regular follower, but it was something really different that you should watch. So, one of the memorable is that four doctors. Last year on Women's Day, we had this one episode where four doctors were there psychologists, a dermatologist, gynecologist, and physiotherapist.
Right.
We came up. So normally on Women's Day or Women's Health, we talk about how we give a lot of GAN to how, what women should do. But here we collaboratively thought that let's give it a twist, like how men can support women for
Okay.
their health. Because normally skincare routine, men would not be that interested. Physiotherapist or something, if you're sick, you go. I won't be there. Psychologists, they will always feel okay. You have some issues, you go to psychiatrist. So it is like collaborative approach. Have a men, even gynecology, all the gynecological issues.
Yeah.
I think 80% of the time men are not with their partners. So that is how we enlighten, and a lot of people appreciated that one episode. And after that, I think one more episode I would talk about the low self-esteem. So you would see a lot of podcasts are about building confidence, personal development, all those positive things. But
Correct.
those identifying low self-esteem is something very crucial. And like after that episode, I realized so many people. I mean, so many people gave me feedback saying like we've never identified that. Okay, I have this problem. People always say okay, I am introvert or I don't I am not that expressive, but no. So
Yeah.
there's some underlying issue that happens in your past which triggers your today's personality. So that one
Right.
episode was really appreciated.
So these are two memorable ones in your podcasting journey. Okay. Now, my question is very similar to what Kabir had, but let's say somebody wants to start a podcast, right? I mean, so what are the essential steps? So one of the things that you mentioned is, have a bank of
Yes.
episodes, right? I mean, so can you tell us about some essential steps that one needs to have?
Okay. So I one message that I would like to give. So whoever wants to start their podcast, so understand one thing. Like maybe you are the face of that podcast, but the podcast is not about a podcaster. It is about a guest.
Right,
What matters, the kind of content your guest will give it to you on your show. So if
right,
you're wrong there, then you will not be able to generate quality content. So that is one aspect where you should think upon. So content, of course, definitely like what kind of content you are providing, what kind of guest you are choosing, what kind of content you are giving, and don't run behind only followers and what is the trend, current trend in the market, because trend will always give you temporary publicity or temporary growth. But when
right,
you are producing something really good, something valuable, people would appreciate it. And steps again, first decide the theme of your podcast, what kind of category that you want to promote, or any particular industry that you want to target. Second, the setup. Of course, content is more important, but visually also these days, if you are going ahead with audiovisual podcast, visually also people judge lot of ways. So understand it's not a small investment. Sometimes it could lead to a very big investment, an investment in terms of money also and in terms of time also. So if
right.
you have one out of this and not other ones, please don't go ahead with starting the podcast, because you might end up getting frustrated because you're not getting consistent revenue from your channel. So the end, if the end, of course, everyone wants to invest because they want to earn any revenue end of the day.
Sure,
And
sure.
the promotional thing. So you need people, right? It's not one man show that you think, okay, मैंने मेरा camera रख दिया and I am sitting here, I am recording, I am editing. Okay, initial one, two, three, four episode is fine, but long term
Correct.
people, you need editor, you need graphics, you need someone who can promote and build strategies. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, on that one, I really have to say thanks to the Thinkly team because they are the backup for me on this particular one. I mean, I'm just using a minute to thank my team. And you, of course, have a fantastic team. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I've seen many of your episodes, and The kind of quality that you have is fantastic. And I'm sure it's a team effort that goes in there.
Of
Let's take a couple of questions which have come on the community. So this comes from Sritu. The question is, what are the essential tools and equipment needed to start a podcast?
okay. First of all, tools and equipment. Like I said, as far as content matters, like the way we are doing is also fine. You just need one camera which can record you and one mic.
Correct.
That's
Correct.
But then, of course, definitely, as you grow, as you want to grow in your career, you can have some good setup with the lights, with the fixed
Right.
background, your theme, then yeah, your mics. Like I'm using Rode mics, so you have a couple of good quality of mics. So audio is very essential. So
Correct.
that is one aspect. So invest in good mic
Hmm.
and editing. So a lot of there are some softwares like Premiere Pro, then CapCut, but there are a lot of AIs also these days can help you out with editing, then sound mixing and everything. So that is all going to help you out.
Okay, great. So that's on the equipment part. Now, there's a question which has come in from Ankita. Her
Mhm.
question is, what do you do to relax after recording an intense episode?
Nothing. First of all, it's very exhausting when you have lights on because the
I'm
lights
sure.
are intensive and you get exhausted, drained after the shoot.
Yeah.
So when you shoot such episodes, nothing. You just spend time with yourself. At least I spend a healthy, good amount of 2 to 3 hours of time with only myself. Do not talk to anyone because your mind needs that, acceptance or something has happened or something is discussed because sometimes it happens like you discuss something and suddenly something triggers you and
Yeah.
your mind needs that relaxation. So that is what, do not get into something else so that it will trigger you somewhere else. So yeah, you relax.
So you relax both before and after your episode, is it? Or this you're talking about is before?
Not every episode. I'm talking about some extensive episodes when you have some topics where, like recently, I will give an example. Like when we were talking about on this Women's Day about the first period, and while discussing with Dr. Tushna, I identified there are girls with the no vagina. And
Yeah.
it's like I was thinking in some different direction, like how the family is getting affected, even for ovarian cancer. Like it gets detected at the age like fourth or fifth stage, and end of the day, people die. So sometimes it is
Mm.
unexpected, and you need that time to just calm yourself and gather yourself.
Sure. Okay, so there are lots of questions which have come on the community. So I'll take each one of them because I think each one of them is really wonderful. Guys, forgive me if I don't go in any particular order. There's no particular order here. I'm just going by what I'm seeing here on the community. So I'll take the first question which has come in last because that's the one that's rightly visible in front of me. So this question is from Prabhu Samal. The question is, what makes you a successful podcast entrepreneur?
Success for me, like I said, like for every episode, if I'm able to help at least one person to get, or maybe somewhere to help that what help that one person to change their lives or
Correct.
change the habit or the way they lived is something a success of my one podcast. So thanks, Prabhu, for asking that. But that is something should be an approach of every podcaster. So it's not like mass, like I want to reach out to million people, but what if your content is not appreciated by anyone? So even
Hmm.
if your audience is limited, try to give something authentic so that you always have that trust. And podcasting is about trust, right? People today also, a lot of people are watching this because you have built that credibility. Otherwise, who will come and watch your podcast if you're not building that relationship with your audience?
Correct. In fact, I mean, if you allow me,
Sure.
which was the first podcast which was done, I mean, in history,
Will?
it was the Bhagavad Gita, which was recited by Lord Krishna to one
Mm-hmm.
Lord, I mean, that is to Arjun. So that is the first point. The audience was one. I mean, that was on a lighter note, but So yeah, I mean,
Thanks
if we
also
make
to
a difference
Prabhu
to one
because
person, if we can make a difference to one person, you know, I
you're
think you achieved your yeah,
But on that note, I really want to say thanks to Prabhu because he was the one who pushed me for podcasting, and he was my
right.
first guest on my
Yes,
podcast.
fantastic. So wonderful things happen when you start something, right? Okay, so there's a question from Meera Chavan. The question is, what makes a podcast host unforgettable? I mean, I'm waiting to hear this.
The experience, the bond that you make, and if you are able to connect with your one listener, and if you have that personalized approach, like okay, I'm not producing this just to get fame, but this is something. Okay, Vipul, if I am able to contribute something today to your episode, then I am successful, or I would feel that okay, ये एक घंटे का time is really.
Very well spent. Okay, now this question is more a little bit of strategy on podcasting, right? It comes from Aditya Patil. The question is how to develop a solid podcast strategy and also how to select innovative topics for podcasts.
Okay. First one is developer strategy, right?
Solid podcast strategy and how to select innovative topics for podcasts.
Okay. So strategy always just go random. Maybe at least have 6 months of timeline to see like how I want to navigate because podcast is a full long length episodes, right? So what kind of maybe you can identify based on the calendars also what kind of information will be appreciated by people. The way I said, okay, Women's Day, we are talking about women's health. Then if
Yeah,
there is some thing about maybe we have done something on Parkinson disease also. So people
yeah,
are not really aware about. So it is on the demand or maybe the timeline where people would really go and watch it. Uh,
right,
uh, of course, year end is something about new goals or something. People always seek for motivation or something. So December, Jan, you can plan something that way. So that way you can identify what kind of people you are you can bring in. And second,
right,
of course, a trend. Trend is something. Let's say if you see recently Ranveer and Raj, Shamani, and a lot of podcasters. They have called a lot of officers, Navy officers or Army officers or something
correct,
when the India and Pakistan issue was happening last to last.
correct,
That because people
correct.
were really keen on knowing what is happening in the background. So that is something really. So that you can actually give what is required at that point of time to your audience.
Right. I think his question is a little broader than that in the sense that, how do you, select a theme, let's say. So, this is theme specific. Let's say there's an India-Pakistan conflict. Then, of course, India-Pakistan conflict would be the flavor of that particular. So, what he means, I think, is a broad-based.
Yes, so
So,
that
how do you do that?
broader way, a calendar, a year-long calendar will help you identifying which days are falling in what kind, if something. So, if you select any category, let's say you are into manufacturing field, so something related to, let's say, big events are happening around Mumbai, Delhi, or something. So, before and after that, you will have some kind of strategies with the industry leaders. So, that will help. If it is something about uh, what something about food. So it is about maybe the cultural part, then demographics, then geographical locations. So on that basis, you can divide. You can reach out to what, like maybe if it's a fast food, something related to that. If it's something about healthy habits, you can reach out to certain audience. So that way you will have to navigate. But trend is something that I am saying that that time for podcaster to grow, it's the right time to produce the same content which audience is actually demanding.
Which outlet? Okay, understood. So, yeah, so you within a broad topic, then you can look at individual theme. Okay. Okay, I'll take one more. It's from Ubaid Sheikh. So the question is, as you mentioned, a podcast largely revolves around the host.
Mhm.
But what if the host isn't comfortable in front of the camera? Oh, this is interesting. Have you ever faced that situation and how did you overcome it? So,
So that's what mentioned. Like before starting the podcast, I myself did a acting for camera course, which
uh,
really helped me become comfortable in front of camera. So I've done some one crash course of 3 weeks, and then after
Okay.
that also I've done some live performances. So it helped me interacting with live audience also and the camera also. So
Uh, so that prepared you for
yeah,
actually
because
doing
what
your
people
podcast.
they have, Ritesh Singh, he helped me a lot navigating through it because normally what people think acting, camera acting is only for people who wants to become actors. But no, like you can actually, get skilled and utilize it according to your needs. So I specified that to him that this is my requirement. This is how I want to move ahead. So that's
Okay.
it. And of course, I will also give him a credit for initial few episodes. He was there to help me become comfortable in front of the camera.
Okay. Okay. That's nice. That's nice. Okay. This one is from Aryan Singh. The question is, and it's a very interesting question. He says, have you ever been into any kind of an embarrassing situation on your podcast while,
Mm.
especially while approaching guests for the podcast?
On the podcast, I of course I won't be approaching guests,
Ah,
but
okay.
embarrassing, I don't think ever, because if you go back and scan through all our podcast episode, you will not find any episode where you will the content is something which is why he's made that. Like I am regretting. Okay, I should have not done that podcast. So it never happened so far, of course,
Okay.
and I never found any I never experienced that kind of embarrassment because I was always clear that whatever main theme of Inner Swank Way is producing educational content irrespective of any industry.
Hmm.
So when you are giving education, you cannot be here and there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think it all comes back to preparation, right? Because you prepare well for your podcast. You speak to your guests in advance. You know what they're going to be educating about,
Yeah.
and to
So
that extent you manage. Embarrassment comes out of an unknown situation.
right, and when you're not prepared, and when you yourself don't know about the subject.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like people think only asking questions is easy, but no. What if your guest asks? Because I remember that one instance for the first time. So Tushna asked me because when I asked her one question about uh, you know about a lady, like maybe a women, what challenges they face, or like so she directly asked me like, you tell me about periods, what do you know and how you helped, or how was your contribution in
Correct.
family. So that was something, if I was not prepared, or I was not alert at that point of time, it would have been very difficult for me then. So
True.
and of course, the podcasts are not scripted. These are outlined and well discussed with the client and the expectations also. Like, what is that we want to discuss? But then,
True.
of course, it's not scripted that, okay, I am asking you this, you have to answer this. There are a lot of podcasts that they do that. Sometimes it's their comfort, and a lot of people they don't want to go here and there, so they want to be specific. But I think you can only get the best out of your guest by being authentic and real at that time.
Fantastic. Authentic and real. I think that's the name of the game. So Janisha had exactly the same question, which you've already answered. So her question was, because she's put it there, I think it's right for me to just ask you that question. So her question is, do you script your interviews or you keep them spontaneous? I think you answered that,
I
that you,
land in between, so I don't keep it very random. At least I give a structure to my guest, or okay, this is expected after the podcast, so that at least we can add value to that one episode.
so Janisha, the answer is it's not fully spontaneous, but at the same time, it's not totally scripted as well. So it's something in between that works the best. Okay, so I have one more question. Yeah, Atul Sopte has this question. In the area dominated by short form video, Insta Reels, and only audio medium, what unique qualities podcast add in today's world, and do you think podcasts are still relevant? Oh, that's an interesting one. You want
Okay,
me to repeat the question?
I understood the
You
question.
understood? Okay.
Uh, so the more speedy, or the more faster reel that you experience, the more faster you will feel good about it, and more faster you'll forget about it. So yeah, of course, I'm not talking about the entertainment videos where you will be forwarding it to it, but educational or informative content, you cannot cover it within 3 seconds,
Right.
right? Any like if someone asks me like the question that has been asked way like sometime back about like the strategic planning or strategy
Correct.
I have to build, I can just tell, okay, go do this, lights, camera, then you're scripting, this is this, but it won't help. I have to explain, okay, this is the process that you have to get in. So yeah, I need time for that. It can't happen in 3 seconds.
Correct. Correct. Okay. Utkarsha Panchal has this question. How has podcasting changed your life or career? Oh, that's an interesting one. I wanted to ask you later, but then Utkarsha has asked this question, so I'm using the opportunity to ask you. So, how has it changed your life or career?
Yeah, one thing is I never thought that I would get exposed to that this level of authenticity or rawness of what the guests are giving. The content is all the experiences that they are sharing, which
Right.
is I am getting for free of cost just by spending some time with them. And I will tell you one thing: it's not only the duration. Let's say podcast is 30 to 40 or 1 hour or 2 hours maybe, but before that and after that, the kind of relation and bond that I make with the guest is something very valuable. Like any guest who had come on my podcast so far, if I need any help from that particular industry, they are always available. So it's not only that 45 minutes to 1 hour or 2 hours, it is the
Right.
relationship that you maintain and how it changed the perspective. Because when I started, I was not knowing that I would go this far. I was like, okay, let's do it in our own accord. If you look back to the older thing, like we didn't have much bigger setup.
Yeah.
Eventually, we got all the things in house. But yeah, it definitely helped me being a good listener, first of all, because I am a person who is not that patient in general. Uh, but it gave me a lot of perspective to how you can be a good listener and more understanding. The more you listen from someone, your brain actually start developing more. So I have become much
Oh,
better version of myself what I was 3 years back. So.
okay. So, you've now been broadcasting now, what, for 3 years?
No, I thought of podcasting for 3 years. I have been in discussions, but no, September 2023. So it's like 1.5 year, you would
One
say.
and a half.
1.5 year, I am been.
Okay. So, one of the things, interesting things that you said is that, everybody who's been on your podcast today, share a good relationship with them.
Yeah,
It's not only a transactional relationship where, you did the podcast and, your relationship is
yeah,
over, right? I mean, and, networking is exactly this, right? I mean, networking is all about building the right kind of relationship.
yes,
And you are a ace networker. You're part of a networking organization. So can you
correct.
walk us through your networking journey so far? And
Okay.
that's the theme of this podcast,
Like
right?
to,
I think.
would you like me to highlight how we met or where, like how we function?
Yeah, please go ahead. This
Uh,
is your podcast, so you have to answer all the questions. I'll only ask them.
when I thought of this podcast thing, and I think in September we launched this, but then mid October somewhere, I got introduced to BNI,
Right.
this is Networking International, and the chapter which is Jenny's chapter, and where Vipul specifically, whenever you join the chapter, you get assigned. You get a mentor assigned, and my mentor was Vipul Bondal, and
Okay.
is and always will be, of course, he'll be there all throughout my journey. But yes, BNI helped me. So when I went there, I realized one thing that what I am looking for my industries divided
Right.
and entrepreneurs and business owners who wants to promote their businesses or stories or journeys on podcast, and it was
Right.
already sorted. More than 150 members were there, so I decided to start, and that is how it happened. And I think 60% of my podcast guests are from BNI and through their network. So yeah, that helped me a lot.
So, okay, I'll take a couple of more questions from the community today. It's flooded. I don't have time to ask my own questions. It's all community ones, right? So this question is from Dheeraj Sawant. Uh, do you have a dream guest you'd love to have on?
Yes, of course. So, I always want to interview Neeta Ambani ji.
Okay.
Reason being, she has played a very important role in a lot of uh, cultural thought process to build in India. If
Yeah.
you see, she has given like NMANC. If you see the platform that she has built, lot of incredible artists are being appreciated because they've got so aesthetically. I mean, talent is always there, but how you can project in front of audience, she has given that platform to people, and she's always been supportive towards all the artists, and she herself is an excellent artist. So that is the
Right.
reason I want to interview her.
Interview.
She has taken India to another level.
So let's hope your message reaches Mrs. Neeta Ambani, and she makes the time to be on your podcast and your dream is fulfilled. Yeah. Okay, I'll take one more question. This question is from Nikita D'Souza. The question is, do you have any funny or awkward moments on the podcast that you can share? This is a little different from the embarrassment question which I asked you. So any awkward moments?
Not awkward, but funny moments. Lot of funny moments happens.
Okay.
Or sometimes guests are nervous, okay,
Yeah.
and they prepare like two times, three times, okay, and sometimes they go here and there, and they're like, "Can we just please re-record?" Because they want to give like a better
The
answer,
right answer. Yeah.
and then they give a better answer, and then my cameraman says, "Sorry, sir, but this time I forgot to record this one."
Okay.
No, that was actually awkward but funny too. But then, of course, like
I'm
my
sure.
parents
Yeah.
have been supportive enough to do that. But that is one thing that I always feel. Then there are like technical things I'll tell you. So if you see, our setup always have this Buddha and two lights blink. This thing, we have two tea lights. Okay, earlier we had natural lights because I personally feel what more natural we can give, which will be more helpful.
Hmm.
So after 3 4 seconds to just have consistency, which has been taught in my acting course. Sometimes the candles are not lit. Sometimes
Hmm.
it's it's off, and after ये क्या बोलते हैं वो बंद होने के बाद वो धुआं निकलता है, right? So that
Yeah.
comes in between. Then
Do-
all these things. Then later I realized, okay, we have to find substitutes. So you can also see right now. So these are lights which are these lights are in the background, which are wax is real, but the lights are fake. So
Lights.
I
Okay.
somewhere stand in between to give that ambience also. Yeah. So all these like small things are funny. Sometimes I'll tell you one funny thing and awkward thing. I would not hesitate to do that.
Yeah.
So there's a treatment was happening with me on my face. Okay, so Dr. Rushali did something, and it takes, and she told me it will take at least 1 week's time to recover. But I was so confident. Okay, one day, second day, nothing has happened. I have called my guest, and she had come in her tight schedule, and on that day there was a big patch. Then I had to do a lot of makeup. so so
Okay.
I thanks to my wife, she helped me. So that's how I covered. But then yeah, we shot that. So yeah, all these things are happening.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure it's fun here. I mean, have you ever fallen asleep on the podcast?
No, not on the podcast.
Not on the podcast. Okay. All right.
Yeah, but there I will tell you there was one podcast which we shot. I will not take the name, but it took almost 6.5 hours for us to record. And
Oh.
imagine after that, and of course, like the guest was not for the first time in his life, he did that podcast. Uh, but then he was not confident. But it came only 40 minutes, but the 40 minutes were really great. People were really happy about it. He himself came back to my office personally to say thanks, Tushar,
Hmm.
for being so patient. So, but sometimes you have to be there because if you can't understand your guest and just run behind, because I know like there are a lot of podcasters, they take studios on rent. So for
Right.
them, it's like, no, we have to finish within an hour's time. But
Right.
it becomes
Right.
very pressing for a lot of guests, and you don't get good quality content. So we have to be
Yeah.
patient at that time.
True. I mean, that's one of the constraints. I mean, if you have a rented studio, then you have to finish your podcast within that much time.
Right.
And you typically, if you booked it for let's say 3, 4 hours, and you got to get done with two or three podcasts, then it can get really strenuous.
Yeah, but I'll tell you that two ways. I one like about the awkward thing. I remember one now.
Sure.
So you know what? Sometimes what happens, even if you prepare or even if you give timeline, even if you have a meeting scheduled, some days you are not in a mood. Like some days you don't, your brain doesn't process. Okay,
Yeah.
it happens with guests also as a podcaster, with me also. One or two times, like we had to reschedule because I could see that because that guest was not comfortable or not at all there, and he was pushing, no, 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 we should be doing today. I know you have blocked this time for me, but then more than that, it is to generate content. Once I think 4 weeks back, something happened, something triggered me. I was not well. Mentally, I was not well. I was not in
Correct.
a position to, interact with anyone. So that guest had come with lot of preparation. He sat in front of me. I just requested him, you know what? I'll tell you, he's Mr. Ashish. We have not released his episode yet,
Hmm.
but he came. He's like, what happened to Shamila? Ashish, can I just request you one thing? Today, I'm really not. I mean, if you want, if there would have been someone unknown, I would have just easily said, okay, just let's do it, just because he's paid or he's invested time in that particular process. But of course, I can be vocal to you. So I told him, can we just reschedule because something is not right today?
Hmm.
He immediately said, not a problem. You take your time. Let's do it this next week. And next week, the episode was really good. The shoot was really good. So that is something
Interesting.
I feel you have to acknowledge what you feel as a podcast. Don't press yourself to, just even if you're not well, even if you're not mentally well, I would say, because it is more of your brain, right? Who's
Correct.
functioning at that point of time, being spontaneous. If you're not at it, please do not record it.
Interesting. Yeah, fantastic insights, Tushar, as we speak, because you might have presented it as an awkward situation or an embarrassing situation, but there's a lot one can take away, and in terms of a lesson on what makes a good podcast, right? Okay, so now let's talk about the external part of it, the projection part of it. Now there are hundreds, thousands of podcasts. I don't know. I mean, maybe tens of thousands of podcasts if one searches, right? And any topic that you take under the sun, I'm sure there's a podcast available for that. So how do you ensure that your podcast stands out among the rest?
Mhm.
What is it that one does as a podcaster or as a podcasting team to make sure that your podcast stands out there? Uh, I mean, the equivalent of TRP for TVs, for example.
Okay. Uh, One thing I'll tell you, like about YouTube optimization, if you find one content, because for one podcast, you might see 10 million people are producing content, right? So it is an ongoing process. Today, you might see my one of my podcasts on the top when you enter two, three keywords, but tomorrow you might not see because it is an algorithm. It is the crawlers are always crawling, and
Right,
the more fresh content, no, the more it will fetch the data, right? Second thing about this thing, like I would suggest give an idea to all of you that do not only produce which is trending, but also produce which is helpful every year. So I will tell you one episode which we shot about uh, choosing the right board for your child, which
right.
the topic is not trending, the topic is not something, but if you see in India, so many people become parent, but every year, like since the time they plan for a baby, they also decide a school,
The school, yeah.
and more than school, they also decide which board, like SSC, CBSE, ICSE, and everything. So all these topics will not go viral, but they will consistently attract the audience which are looking for some kind of content. So you also build some kind of content. The way we have built ovarian cancer, you will hardly see two or three podcasts across globe on cancer itself. So some of the
Right.
niche that you can target which may not go viral but yet informative for people who can regularly watch.
Yeah, but my question is a little more than that. I mean, that's for content creation. My
Mm.
question was more in terms of how do you make your podcast stand out? Like television, uh, you know, these days you hear a lot of people saying, they do these things only to gain TRP. And
Hmm.
probably somewhere along the way, television got itself a bad name for that. They do this only to gain TRP. I mean, my question is not
But I
controversial, but
won't
my
say
question
but
is, how do you make your podcast stand out?
yeah. So that's what I'm telling you. Like, see, sometimes in order to get viral, in order to get, in order to stand out, you might do, uncertain or certain mistakes.
Ah,
And I think everyone knows, right? So don't run behind it. That is one big thing that I'll tell you. It is a slow process. It is a journey. If you
it's a
see whoever, I mean, if you see the top podcasters of India or world right
mm,
now, also it's not like 2 months or 3 months back they have done it. It is a very long journey that they have done.
mm,
So be consistent, regular, be authentic, and gives valuable. Time will pay you back. That's the only process that you can achieve. You can go viral for certain things. You can go, you can get popular, but in order to just, get attention of people, do not do certain mistakes which will, let down your reputation.
sure. Understood. Okay. I have a couple of more questions on this. Today, I have to say you've broken records, right? As far as questions on the community come, and I'm going to make sure I'm going to ask all questions which come here today, because sometimes I disappoint my guests. I'm not able to take all the questions, but today I have sworn to myself I'm going to ask all the questions that come, right? So this question is from Omkar. The question is there anyone you idolized and followed up to when you first got into podcasting?
Okay, to be very honest, I hardly watch podcasts. I also do not watch my own podcast
Okay.
once recorded because you know how you uh, look at yourself on big screen or you look at yourself on screen and how you are actually is completely two different personalities, right? And the more you look at yourself, it gives you a lot of negative. You will always pinpoint what is bad in this.
Negative.
Okay, that is
Yeah.
one thing that I stay away from. Second thing, followers. Of course, there are a lot of content creators there who are producing really good content, but I am very much about content specific. If I like that certain topic and how he approach or she approach that topic, that is something that I will take. But there is honestly there is no role model for me because I don't see my journey to become a role model in India or in world myself.
Okay.
I just want to create content which will be helpful for people, and in order to in that process, if people are appreciating and loving that, that is something which is acceptable. But accept this, I will appreciate that. But
Okay.
yes, there is no asset role model for me.
You don't have a role model as such. Okay. Now, this is another interesting question when I'll ask that. So this comes from Aditya Patel again. His question is, being a podcast host, has this role as a podcast host brought about any changes to your personality?
Yes, majorly communication style.
Okay.
If you go back and look at my 1.5 years for the first podcast or initial podcast, and the way I was and the way I talk now, it's completely different. How
Okay.
I represent myself is different. I have attended a lot of shows. I mean, live shows also. I have attended a lot of this events also these days. So how people talk to me is also change. It changed because I think I have changed my perspective and I have changed my way of communication, and I'm I think much better in expressing my thoughts also because one thing I learned in my course is like about expressing certain emotions. So earlier it was very okay, you can categorize into maybe 4 or 6 emotions which you name happy, sad, angry or something. But now when you explore more, you have like around 26, 30, 35, 36 emotions. So
Okay.
when you can identify that, actually it helps you to also understand your guest how he's feeling or she is feeling right now.
Interesting. I think I'll have to undergo a course with you to be able to understand all this. So, Tushar, thank you very much. You've given me a lot of time. We have, I think, last 5 minutes left. So I'll ask you a futuristic question.
Okay.
So, you've come a long way in the last 1.5, 2 years that you've had with your podcasting experience. So, how do you see yourself in the future? What's next for you, and how do you see yourself, let's say, in the next 5 years?
Okay. So, uh, for the second year of podcasting, like in September, we have planned something really interesting.
Okay.
Uh, you would see everything related to how to, like today's topic is also about podcasting, right?
Yeah.
How you can start a podcast or like a guide to a podcaster or something. But here's a twist because I have identified in my journey, it is more than you, it is about the guests. So there is something that we are going to launch for only and only for guests. So there are a lot of people in the market, they really want to, see themselves as a guest, but lot of hindrances are there, lot of judgments are there, lot of hesitations are there that
Yeah.
they are afraid of coming on podcast. So there is
Hmm.
something that we are going to do for them.
Okay.
Uh, and long term, I we have this vision of in a Swank Way being a podcast marketing agency,
Okay.
like a digital marketing agency. So
Fantastic. Fantastic. On that note, Tushar, thank you very much for sparing the time and being so open and authentic about your answers. Uh, really privileged to have hosted you. And, I'm sure after the episode, I watch this one for sure, because this one here, you are not the host, you're the guest.
I have
So,
my team also recording certain clips for us.
yeah. So, if there are any tips that you can give me for improving the quality of it, I'll be really grateful. And thank you very much for sparing the time and being there today.
And thanks to Thingley team and you as well for having me here and all the guests and not guests, I mean the viewers who
Viewers.
posted a lot of questions. Because of that, I think I could give my some answers.
Absolutely. I mean, the questions were far better than what I could have asked. And, thanks very much, all of you, for logging in and asking those questions. I think your questions made the interaction way more richer than what it would have been. Thank you again.
Thank you. Bye.